Okay, so cholesterol um, is actually a type of steroid. I know it sounds kind of weird. People don't really think of cholesterol as steroids if you don't know it. But basically, a steroid, the class of steroids, is based off of a shape of the structure. Okay, so compounds that have this ABCD ring system, it's a 6665 ring system in this shape. You can easily see them. Now, they also talk about like the methyl groups here. You also have to have those methyl groups. Well, yes and no. There are some cases where you don't really have to have the methyl group. It's still considered a steroid. Okay, but technically, if you just have the 6665 and the methyl groups, you have what's called a steroid. And there's tons and tons of different types of steroids. Cholesterol is one of them. Our hormones are also are types of steroids. Okay, so you can easily look at structures, and if it has this shape to it, you should kind of be able to recognize that structure system to it, and you know that it's a type of cholesterol. I'm sorry, steroid. Okay, cholesterol is a type of steroid. Okay, um, it's the largest, it's the prominent steroid inside of our bodies, found in our liver and in our body tissue. Here's an example of cholesterol. You can see that 6665, plus you got a whole bunch of other stuff on it. All right, it is obtained in our diet from many sources. Elevated cholesterol obviously leads to coronary artery disease. Cholesterol is insoluble in the aqueous medium of our blood. So it's transported through the blood by lipoproteins, aggregates of phospholipids and proteins. So a lipoprotein is a bunch of proteins all mixed all together with fats and proteins. LDLs, those are the bad ones, transport cholesterol from the liver to tissues. HDLs transport cholesterol from tissues back to the liver. That's why the HDLs are better, because the HDLs are removing the high amounts of cholesterol in our blood system, in our blood. We do not want to have the cholesterol in our blood. It's all right to have it in our liver because our liver will break it down. You want to have a little amount of cholesterol in the blood itself. So that's why the LDLs transfer out. That's the bad stuff. The HDLs transfer into the liver in order to get hydrolyzed and processed. Okay, so this is an example of a lipoprotein. Again, a lipoprotein is a combination of a protein and a fat. All right, so you can kind of see the protein is on top, and you have, it's a bead of phospholipids, um, as well as the cholesterol is kind of trapped inside of it. All right, so you can kind of read this and see that cholesterol is embedded in the phospholipid surface with a nonpolar carbon skeleton in the interior and the polar OH pointed outwards. Again, because imagine outside of here I have water. It's inside our blood, and you basically are made of water mostly. The interior of the lipoprotein particle is hydrophobic. All right, and the surface of the lipoprotein particle contains polar anionic groups. All right, so that's just kind of showing you a cross section of what a lipoprotein is. All right, LDL deposit cholesterol in our walls, which we kind of know when they carry more than is needed to form a cell membrane. This forms plaque, which results in blood flow. LDL is the bad cholesterol. HDL reduces the level of cholesterol in the bloodstream by bringing excess back to the liver. HDL is the good protein. You want to get it out. And here are numbers. We're not going to go over that. This isn't medical school. Cross section of a healthy artery to a plaque-infested artery. Statins. Statins are a very common drugs, Lipitor and Zocor, that reduce the amount of cholesterol in our bloodstream. I guess you can think of them as HDLs. In a way, they remove, I think they actually block the synthesis of cholesterol. So you go, they act by blocking the synthesis of cholesterol at the early stages. All right. So a 18.9 is a hormone now is a molecule that's synthesized in an organism that causes another response at a different site. All right. So the two most common forms of hormones are our sex hormones and our adrenal cortical steroids. All right. So estrogen and progestins, like progesterone and things like that are the female sex hormones. Um, Androgens are the male sex hormones, like like testosterone, right? Um, so the estrogens, estradiol and estrone, control the development of the secondary sex characteristics, regulating the menstrual cycle, and are made in the ovaries. So these are the two common ones. You can see also that 6665 system with the aromatic. This time they have aromatic groups. Notice they don't have the methyl here like they had. That's why it wasn't really that important that you have a methyl there. It's still a very common. It's still the important is that 6665 ring system. Progesterone is called the pregnancy hormone, is responsible for the preparation of the uterus for the implantation of the fertilized egg. Um, Here is testosterone and androsterone are androgens made in the testes of males. They control the development of secondary sex characteristics in males. And again, very common structure. Again, these do have all the methyl groups in them. Synthetic androgen analogs called anabolic steroids promote muscle growth because it's basically a mimic for the male hormones. They have the same effect as testosterone, but are more stable, so they are not metabolized as quickly. They have become used in athletes and bodybuilders. They're not, we know all this stuff. Prolonged use, however, can obviously cause a lot of problems. This is stuff I feel everyone pretty much knows and has heard tons of it in the news. These are just common steroids. You can see they're very similar to the structure of these hormones. Again, you can see the 6665. They're a little different. This one has an extra ring to it. The adrenal cortical steroids, here are example like cortisone and cortisol, aldosterone. These are also steroids, but they are not responsible for like the sex characteristics inside our bodies, but they also have the 6665 ring system. These kind of do other things. They regulate blood pressure, okay, or the volume of concentration of our sodium and potassium. These also have anti-inflammatory effects. These are the big ones, especially cortisone and cortisol. If anyone has asthma, and sometimes when the asthma gets completely out of control, you actually take what's called an oral steroid. Now, it's not an anabolic steroid. It's one of these types of steroids. It's a cortical steroid. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm taking steroids. I'm going to start building muscles. No, it's not even close to the same thing. Structurally, sure, it's similar, but it has a totally different effect on your body. Okay, it's an anti-inflammatory response. So it brings down the inflammation inside of the lining of your lungs. It does not cause you to bulk up. Okay, so a lot of people think it is because they hear the word steroid and they automatically think of anabolic steroids. So just realize there are two different types. There's actually three different types. There's anabolic, there are sex hormones, and then there are cortical steroids, which are the anti-inflammatory. Prolonged use of these steroids can have obviously side effects, bone loss, and high blood pressure. Prednisone, that's kind of the most common oral steroid that is given. It has this anti-inflammatory effect. Again, if you have asthma or someone that's asthma and it's kind of getting out of control and your inhalers aren't working anymore, usually they prescribe prednisone or prednisolone with an L, which is also, I believe that's a precursor for prednisone. So your body changes that one into prednisone, which then eventually gets converted into cortisol. All right, so we will stop right here, and when we start back, we'll start back at 19.10.